After breaking the mysterious One Wish Willow to win his crush's heart, a hopeless romantic finds himself getting exactly what he asked for, but soon discovers that some desires come at a dark, sinister price. Hi, my name's Zach, and today I'm going to give you my review for the latest horror film, Obsession. Before we get started, I started this YouTube channel because I cannot watch a movie without needing to talk about it afterwards. If that sounds like you, you're in the right place. Consider hitting that subscribe button. Also, I want this to be a conversation between me and you, so comment down below your thoughts and opinions on Obsession. Are you aware of this film? Have you been highly anticipating it, or is this one of the first times that you've heard of it? Comment down below. I'd love to hear your story. For me, Obsession started to come into my sphere about a month and a half ago, maybe 2 months ago. I saw the trailer for this in front of Scream 7, and from then, all my friends in the horror community and just on YouTube talking about movies in general were really obsessed about Obsession. This comes from a filmmaker who used to make shorts on YouTube, Curry Barker. This is my first time hearing about him, but I like these kind of stories. I like when people go from YouTube transitioning to actual filmmakers in Hollywood. We're seeing a lot of that happen actually in the last little bit. Chris Stuckman got to make Shelby Oaks. We saw that Markiplier got to make Iron Lung, and now we're getting this guy making this original concept that he wrote and directed himself. It's really great to see new, fresh blood and fresh eyes come into not just the horror sphere in Hollywood, but just in Hollywood in general, because there is a different outlook on life. There's a different perspective that younger filmmakers bring into their movies that gives it a fresh flavor and makes it feel unique and new if you get the right concept, the right idea, and the right filmmaker behind it. And that is something that I'm very happy to say has happened with Obsession. I was floored by this movie, to be quite perfectly honest with you. I was very curious to see how exactly they were going to make this concept freaky and terrifying, because it's such a relatable concept, especially to, I think, young men, especially in the teenage years, or maybe even a little bit older than that, where there's a girl, you just want to get close to her. Maybe you guys are friends, but you're just not quite sure if she feels the same way about you. And you just have this wish fulfillment of being with her or having her see you in that way, which is where our protagonist, Bear, at the beginning of this film is seeing his friend Nikki, played by Inde Navarrette. And so when he makes this wish and has this girl suddenly become super into him, I was curious to see how they were going to make me frightened by that concept, because it's not necessarily a new concept. We've seen stories like this play out in various mediums, and it usually goes to annoyance or the girl just kind of gets a little bit too clingy. So I was curious to see how that was going to translate in this particular movie. And I think what it all comes down to is the direction by Barker and the performance by Inde Navarrete, because in this movie, Curry Barker's able to find that unique window, that different outlook on this type of situation, and he twists it in the right way to make it horrific. Because not only is this girl now obsessed with this man who she was really not that into in the first place. What's so interesting about this story in particular is not just how this girl ends up acting towards the guy who made the wish, but also in the little glimpses you get in what's going on in this woman, because they make it very clear in the movie that she is doing all of these things almost like in a robotic fashion. And Inde Navarrete really does a great job of getting that across on the screen, that this is a person trapped inside their own body, trapped inside their own mind, doing things and being with this man in ways that she would otherwise not want to be in. And so when you get into those moments, particularly in the film, where you get glimpses of her becoming lucid or snapping out of it and freaking out or having a moment where she's just horrifically terrified and then snapping right back into that complicit girlfriend for this man, there are some really unique ways that the actress goes about showing those transitions in an almost an uncanny valley type performance, where when she does have to be obsessed over this guy, there's something just a little bit off about her humanity. She doesn't feel like herself, and people pick up on it throughout the film. So not only do you have this actress who has to act super insane at moments, super frightened at moments, super into the guy who she doesn't want to be into at moments, but she also gives such a creepy performance in the way that she's able to contort her face. Sometimes she'll just hold a facial expression for longer than she's supposed to, and they linger on it, that they allow the scene to play out in a way where it just becomes so unsettling and disturbing. Even her interactions as the film goes on, and you get a little bit more of idea of exactly just how twisted this guy has made this girl by making this wish. There are moments throughout the movie where you feel incredibly bad for this woman, and at the same time incredibly frightened by her. And Curry Barker really impressed me with that line he was able to toe, because at no point did I find that the girl who's in the movie named Nikki, did I find her to be the antagonist of the film. I felt like she was always the victim because of what this man has done to her with this wish. Alongside her, you've got Michael Johnston playing the character Bear, the man who makes this wish on his friend, and he kind of plays the character very shy, nervous, and timid all throughout the entire movie. And something that I thought was really interesting about these two actors in particular is when I was watching the first bit of the movie where Bear wants to get with Nikki. He hasn't cast the spell on her yet by making the wish. There wasn't much chemistry between them. I didn't feel like I was necessarily rooting for them to get together. They make it very apparent that the Nikki character is someone who he would want to be with. They make her very likable and charming, and they give just enough to show you why he is so into her. You don't really feel that reciprocated from her point. And so the fact that these two didn't really have great chemistry is actually what made this movie work even better for me, because the chemistry was so off. And that's the advantage this movie has being a horror film and tackling the premise and the concept that it is because if this was played straight as a romance movie, they would be the problem. They don't have chemistry. They don't work together. But because I felt like they didn't have chemistry when the wish is granted and when she is obsessed with this man, it feels weird and it feels off because they just don't really feel like they fit together, and they don't really have the chemistry that you would be rooting for them as a couple, which helps you to root against this whole idea of what this man has done to this girl, because this could have easily played out in a romantic comedy fashion. They could have easily, in fact, this movie could be made as a romantic comedy. I'm sure it has been made. I'm sure this premise has been done in romantic comedies before, but the twist that they do on it is just so brilliant. And even the dialogue, some of the stuff that this girl says when she's being in this almost possession state of a character, it gets really eerie, it gets really creepy, and they also are not reliant on jump scares, which was something that I really loved. There are definitely moments where something loud happens or the girl screams and you do get a little bit of jump in your seat, but there's nothing coming at you in the screen. There's no flashes of scary horrific imagery. It's all very organic and natural, and a lot of the horror really does come from the premise itself, the execution of that premise, and the performances that are able to be done. Even with Inde Navarrette, I don't feel like they do anything to digitally enhance her performance or do anything that makes her feel uncanny or weird. I think it's all her, and it's more impressive because of it. And they do find a way to get the blood involved, to get the kills involved. And a lot of it comes in the back half of the film, which works so well because the film has been winding you up the entire time. The tension keeps building, the suspense keeps building, so that when that band finally breaks and Nikki kind of breaks and we get the bloodshed, it feels like it has a purpose to it. It doesn't feel like it's out of place of the story, because the story has so naturally built up to the moments that those occur. So I found this film to be incredibly strong. I was very impressed by it. It exceeded my expectations greatly. If there were a couple nitpicks, a couple of negatives that I had for Obsession, it would be that when it comes to the length of the movie, it is a little bit long in the tooth. There was a moment right before the third act kind of kicked in that I felt a little bit of a repetitive nature kind of happening. There was a lot of re- repeated moments of Nikki feeling like she did something that Bear wasn't approving of, and she freaks out and she yells and she screams, and that kind of cycle repeats itself a little bit too much, I would say, in the tail end of the second act of the movie. Aside from the length and aside from a feeling of repetition, I thought this movie was very creepy, very unsettling, very disturbing. It hit all of the boxes that it was aiming to hit, and it's a standout performance by Inde Navarrette. I think she's going to be in a ton more stuff after this. I want to see her in a ton more stuff after this. I do think she overshadows the guy. I think Michael Johnston doesn't get as much shine in this, even though his performance is quite good as well. Inde Navarrete. That is the story here. And Curry Barker, they're the story here. They are the stars. They're the standout. And they're why this movie, for me, when it comes to my recommendation, I'm actually going to give Obsession the second strong recommend of the year, right behind Project Hail Mary. But this, I will be surprised if this wasn't one of my favorite movies by the end of the year. I think it's that good, that impressive, that unique, and I had such a great experience, if not a disturbing one, watching Obsession. If you are a horror fan, or if you even just want like a on-ramp to horror, this is one to check out. What did you think of Obsession? Comment down below. Let me know all your thoughts and opinions. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. You can check out some more content right over there. Appreciate you guys. And don't just watch movies, talk movies. I'll see you guys next time. Take care.